We have to do one more bit of marking, and it is done with thread and with a hand sewing needle. And in order to do it, I need to take this pattern piece completely off. I have most of the pins already out, but I have a few more to go. And I'm going to take the pattern, and I'm going to take the bottom layer, and I'm going to set them aside. And remember, don't throw your pattern away because you might need it for reference later on to measure something. So I'm just going to set that aside. Now, this is the piece that we use the tracing wheel on, and I can see that there's a line here and it's curved, and whenever I make this into a fly like this, I have to top stitch on this side, but I don't have a mark on this side. So in order for me to be able to see where I'm supposed to top stitch there, I have to give myself a line to follow. And we're going to do that with thread and a needle. Now this is going to be a doubled thread just so it's a little bit easier to see. And whenever I measure for a double thread, I usually take my hand all the way out and to my opposite shoulder. And you're not going to be able to see me do that, but it's more than 30 inches. So if you need to measure, you can do that. But if you just hold up the spool of thread and take the end to your opposite shoulder, you should have a piece that's long enough. I don't ever hand sew a single thread like that, only when I do a double thread. Single thread, I'm going to use a shorter piece. Now, to thread my needle, make sure I'm in the light here, in the center. I am going to push, I'm holding real close to the end. Don't ask me to do this. I do not see very well. I am partially blind in one of my eyes, so don't ask me. Plus, this is an embroidery needle. It's got a big eye in it. You should be able to get it through here. So I'm going to put the thread through the eye, and then I'm going to take my other end. I want to put the two ends together. Now, there are all different ways to tie knots. This one doesn't have to be a pretty knot because it's a temporary knot. It's one that we're going to use, and then we're going to cut this thread out later. If you were doing embroidery or something else that it was going to stay in permanently, you would need to do a pretty knot. You can make a big ugly knot. It's okay. I take the two ends, the two loose ends between my thumb and pointer finger of my dominant hand, and I wrap it around, usually twice, till it makes an X, and then I start rolling like I got something stuck on my finger. And when I get it so that the loop is hanging off on the end, I pull back. And then I got a big knot. And I told you, I don't care if it's a big knot. I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to do it again. And I think I'm going to move a little closer to the camera so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm taking the two ends between my finger and my thumb, all right? And I'm going to wrap it, wants to slide around my finger twice. And then I'm going to wiggle my fingers back and forth like that until it slides off the end, kind of like you got a piece of goo on your finger. You're trying to slide up. Slide it back, and I'm going to have a big nasty knot. And I don't care because it's a temporary thing. It's a temporary thing. Alrighty, we're going to need to do this just the once, and so it's not a big deal. It won't take you that long to do. Please don't ask me to do this part. This is something that you need to learn how to do yourself. So don't ask me to do this part. Okay. So I actually am going to start where my dot was. And remember we marked that little dot? And I'm going to start at the dot, and I'm going to follow up along this line. And this line is really faint for you to see, but I can see it, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start right at the dot, and I used a pencil, so I've got a little gray dot there. And I'm going to do what's called a basting stitch. And a basting stitch is basically just an in and out stitch. I sometimes call it a dolphin stitch because you're basically doing this, okay, like dolphins swim. All right? And I actually can pick this up in my hand to do it, and sometimes it's easier. If you notice, I scrunched it up. I'm going to go in and out, and I want to follow right on the line, in and out. And I usually do just a couple, and then I'll pull it through. You don't want this to gather up tight. You want it to just be there to see. The stitches can be big because we're going to take them out later. But I do want to make sure that I'm following right on the line because this is where we're going to top stitch later on. Okay? So again, I scrunch it up in my hand like that. I'm not squeezing real hard because I don't want to wrinkle, but I want to be able to get to right where I am. And I'm doing an in and out like this till I have 2 or 3 stitches on there, and then I'm going to pull it, and then I want to smooth it because I don't want this to gather up. In and out along that line. Okay, smooth it flat. In and out, in and out. Okay, keep going. In and out along the line. Okay, and it's laying flat. I'm almost finished. I got about 2 or 3 inches more to go. So in and out, in and out. Oh, the buzzer went off. I got 1 more stitch to do. And then I am not going to knot this at the top. When I get to the end, I'm not knotting it because I'm going to pull this out later. I don't want this super tight right there. I want a little bit of space. Remember, this is just for marking. This is not sewing anything together. And I'm actually going to take my scissors right now and clip that off and leave a little bit of a tail. And I'm going to take this needle and put it right back where it goes, which is on the magnet that's hanging on my bulletin board. Okay, that's where it belongs. Don't lay it down loose on the table. If you ever have to put it down for some reason, take it and stick it in your fabric just a little bit. Don't just lay it loose on the table, because if you do, then it's going to disappear, and then we're going to have to find some more. So because I'm going to show you something else, I'm going to stick my needle right there. I'm going to get rid of it in just a minute. I have a yellow thread. I'm going to flip this over so you can see, and it's not real dark in the camera, but it is. You can see that red line along there. And when we have our front together and we are getting ready to stitch the fake fly, we're actually going to stitch right along that line all the way up to the top, and that's going to make our fake fly. And this, you don't have to mark anything else with chalk or measure or anything like that. You don't have to hand draw anything on. It's just all right there. And then once that part is done, we're going to take the basting out, and we're going to be able to just have that little fake fly there and have nice top stitching. Okay, your marking. If you did the fake fly, your marking is all done and you're ready for the sewing machine next. And remember that you must do your sample seam and show it to me before you can actually start working on any of the steps of sewing your project together.